The rain outside was relentless, tapping against the tin roof and filling the room with a soothing rhythm. Keo sat by the window, chin resting on her knees as she watched the puddles forming on the muddy street. But her mind was far from the rain. It was on Fawn. Fawn had always been there, her best friend, her confidant, her everything. But lately, things had shifted. The way Fawn's laughter lingered in her ears, the way her smile made Keo's heart race, it was becoming impossible to ignore. Keo, you're going to burn a hole in that window if you keep staring at it. Her younger sister Molly teased as she walked into the room, carrying a tray of snacks. Keo snapped out of her thoughts, her cheeks flushing. I'm just thinking. Molly plopped down beside her, grinning. Thinking about Fawn, maybe? Keo's eyes widened, and she playfully swatted her sister. Stop it, Molly. Molly laughed, leaning closer. You can't fool me, sister. It's written all over your face. Keo sighed, her voice barely above a whisper. Is it that obvious? The next day, Keo found herself nervously walking to the village cafe. Fawn had invited her to meet, as they often did, but today felt different. Keo's heart was pounding, and she couldn't shake the butterflies in her stomach. Fawn was already there, sitting by the window with a cup of iced tea. She waved when she saw Keo, her smile as radiant as the morning sun. You're late, Fawn teased as Keo slid into the seat across from her. Blame the rain, Keo said, trying to sound casual. Fawn tilted her head, studying her. You've been quiet lately. Is everything okay? Keo hesitated, her fingers nervously tracing patterns on the table. I'm fine, just a lot on my mind. Fawn reached across the table, her hand lightly brushing Keo's. You know you can tell me anything, right? Keo felt a jolt at the touch but quickly pulled her hand away, her cheeks burning. I know, she said softly. That evening, the two of them walked to the riverbank. The air was cool, and the water sparkled under the soft glow of the setting sun. They sat side by side, their shoulders almost touching, the silence between them heavy with unspoken words. Fawn, Keo began, her voice trembling. I have to tell you something. Fawn turned to her, her expression gentle. What is it? Keo took a deep breath, her hands clenching the hem of her dress. I think I'm in love with you. The words hung in the air, and Keo immediately felt a wave of panic. She couldn't look at Fawn, afraid of what she might see in her eyes. Keo, Fawn said softly, her voice steady. Look at me. Keo hesitated but finally turned to meet her gaze. Fawn's eyes were shining with an emotion Keo couldn't quite place. I've been waiting for you to say that, Fawn whispered, a small smile tugging at her lips. Keo's heart soared. You feel the same? Fawn nodded, her hand reaching out to cup Keo's cheek. I've loved you for so long, Keo. I was just too scared to tell you. Their faces were inches apart now, and before Keo could second-guess herself, Fawn leaned in, capturing her lips in a soft, lingering kiss. Their relationship blossomed in secret, each stolen moment feeling like a precious treasure. They would meet by the riverbank, away from prying eyes, where they could laugh, talk, and lose themselves in each other. One evening, as they lay on the grass, Fawn traced patterns on Keo's hand. Do you ever think about the future? She asked. Keo turned to her, smiling. Only when I think about it with you. Fawn's expression softened, and she leaned in, pressing a kiss to Keo's forehead. I want to make you happy, Keo. Always. You already do, Keo whispered, her heart full. Their happiness wasn't without its challenges. The villagers began to notice their closeness, and whispers started to spread. Did you see Keo and Fawn by the river again? Auntie Noi said to her neighbor at the market. They're inseparable these days. It's unusual. Keo overheard the conversation, her heart sinking. She hurried home, her chest tight with anxiety. When Keo told Fawn about the villagers' whispers later, Fawn's jaw tightened. Let them talk, she said firmly, pulling Keo into a hug. We know the truth. That's all that matters. But what if they never stop? Keo whispered, tears filling her eyes. Fawn kissed her gently. Then we'll face it together. One night, after a storm had passed, Keo and Fawn found themselves alone in Keo's room. The soft glow of a lantern bathed the room in warm light, and the rain had left the air cool and refreshing. Fawn sat on the edge of the bed, her hand gently tracing circles on Keo's arm. "You're so beautiful," she murmured, her voice filled with awe. Keo blushed, her heart racing. "You're just saying that." "I'm not," Fawn insisted, leaning in closer. "Every time I look at you, I feel like the luckiest person alive." Keo smiled, her eyes shining with emotion. She leaned in, their lips meeting in a kiss that was slow and tender, filled with all the love they had for each other. The night was theirs, filled with whispered promises, gentle touches, and the certainty that they had found something truly special. The following week, Keo and Fawn decided to spend the day at the nearby flower fields, a favorite escape from the judgmental whispers of the village. The golden sun bathed the landscape, and the scent of blooming jasmine and marigolds filled the air. Fawn plucked a flower and tucked it behind Keo's ear, her fingers lingering against Keo's cheek. "You're breathtaking," Fawn said softly. Keo laughed, trying to hide her blush. "You say that every day." "Because it's true every day," Fawn replied, pulling Keo closer. As they sat together, Keo hesitated before speaking. "Fawn, do you think we're being reckless?" Fawn frowned. "Reckless how?" "With how we're handling everything," Keo admitted. "The way people look at us, talk about us. I'm scared it'll only get worse." Fawn reached for Keo's hands, her grip firm but comforting. "Keo, I love you. I'll face anything as long as I have you by my side. Do you trust me?" Keo looked into Fawn's eyes and saw nothing but sincerity. "I trust you," she whispered, leaning in to kiss her. Back at Keo's home, her mother, Eri, had been observing her daughter closely. Keo's glowing smile and distracted demeanor hadn't gone unnoticed. "Keo," Eri said one evening as they washed dishes together, "can I ask you something?" Keo hesitated. "Of course, May. What is it?" Eri dried her hands and turned to face her daughter. "Is there something more between you and Fawn?" Keo froze, her heart pounding. "Why do you ask that?" Eri sighed, her expression soft. "You've been different lately, happier. And Fawn is always around. You know you can tell me anything, right?" Keo swallowed hard. "May, Before she could finish, Molly burst into the room. "May, don't make her nervous. Let her tell you when she's ready." Keo gave Molly a grateful look, but Eri's eyes remained kind. "Whenever you're ready, Keo. Just remember, I love you no matter what." Not everyone was as understanding. Auntie Noi had taken it upon herself to investigate the relationship between Keo and Fawn. She cornered Fawn at the market one afternoon. "Fawn, dear," Auntie Noi began, her tone dripping with faux sweetness. "You and Keo seem to be quite close these days." Fawn's jaw tightened. "We've always been close, Auntie Noi." Auntie Noi said, her eyes narrowing. "People are starting to wonder if there's more to your friendship than meets the eye." Fawn forced a polite smile. "People should focus on their own lives instead of making judgments about others." Keo arrived just in time to hear the exchange. She grabbed Fawn's arm and led her away, her heart racing. "Fawn, you didn't have to say that," Keo said once they were out of earshot. Fawn shrugged. "I'm not going to let her or anyone else make us feel ashamed for being in love." Keo smiled, tears filling her eyes. "You're incredible, you know that?" Determined to escape the constant judgment, Fawn planned a day trip to a private beach. The golden sands stretched for miles, and the sound of waves crashing against the shore was the perfect backdrop for their escape. As they walked along the water, Keo looked up at Fawn, her heart swelling with love. "How did you know I needed this?" Fawn smiled, pulling her into a gentle embrace. "I know you, Keo, better than anyone else." They sat by the shore, their hands intertwined as the sun set. Keo rested her head on Fawn's shoulder, feeling a rare moment of peace. "Fawn," Keo said softly, "I don't know what I'd do without you." Fawn kissed the top of her head. "You'll never have to find out." Molly, always watching out for her sister, decided to step in. One evening, she found Fawn alone and pulled her aside. "Hey, Fawn, we need to talk," Molly said seriously. Fawn raised an eyebrow. What's up? Molly crossed her arms. Kayu's my sister, and I see how happy you make her. But I also see how worried she is about what others think. You need to protect her, Fawn. Fawn nodded. I will, Molly. I love her, and I'd do anything to keep her safe. Molly smiled. Good, because if you hurt her, you'll have to answer to me. Fawn laughed and ruffled Molly's hair. Got it. One night, while the village slept, Fawn snuck into Kayu's yard with a small speaker. She played a soft, romantic tune and called out to Kayu's window. Kayu, come down. Fawn whispered. Kayu peeked out, her eyes wide. Fawn, what are you doing? Dancing with you, Fawn said, holding out her hand. Kayu climbed down and took Fawn's hand, laughing. You're crazy. Crazy for you, Fawn replied, pulling her close. They swayed under the moonlight, losing themselves in the moment. The next morning, their joy was interrupted by Kayu's cousin, Pim. Pim was always curious and outspoken, and she wasted no time questioning Kayu about her late-night activities. Kayu, why were you sneaking around last night? I saw you outside with someone, Pim said, sipping her tea. Kayu froze. You saw? Pim grinned. Relax. I'm not gonna tell anyone. But who was it? A lover, perhaps? Before Kayu could respond, Fawn walked in with a basket of fruits. Pim's eyes darted between them, and her grin widened. Oh, Pim said knowingly. It's you too, isn't it? Kayu's cheeks turned red. Pim, please. Fawn stepped forward. We're together, Pim, and we'd appreciate it if you kept it to yourself. Pim leaned back, her expression softening. Relax, I'm on your side. Love is love, Kayu. Just be careful, okay? Despite Pim's promise, the village's whispers grew louder. One afternoon, while Kayu and Fawn were at the market, they noticed people staring and murmuring. Do you hear that? Kayu whispered, clutching Fawn's arm. Fawn nodded. Ignore them, but it was hard to ignore when Auntie Noi approached them directly. Kayu, Fawn, she said sharply. The village deserves to know. What's going on between you two? Fawn stood up, her eyes blazing. What's going on is none of your business, Auntie Noi. Kayu's heart thumped as Fawn took her hand in front of everyone. We love each other, Fawn said firmly. And we won't hide it anymore. The market fell silent, and Kayu felt both fear and relief. Fawn squeezed her hand, silently assuring they'd face whatever came next together. That evening, Kayu's mother, Eri, sat her down for a serious conversation. Kayu, Eri began gently, the village is talking, but I want to hear it from you. Is it true? Are you and Fawn? Kayu's hands trembled as she nodded. Yes, May. I love her. Eri was silent for a moment, then reached out to take Kayu's hands. Kayu, I've always wanted you to be happy. If Fawn makes you happy, that's all that matters to me. Tears flowed down Kayu's face as she hugged her mother tightly. Thank you, May. Thank you for understanding. Eri smiled, petting her daughter's hair. Love is rare, my child. Hold onto it with everything you have. Fawn surprised Kayu with a weekend trip to a small lakeside cottage, far from the prying eyes of the village. The air was fresh, and the lake sparkled under the golden sun. As they sat on the porch, watching the sunset, Fawn took Kayu's hand. Kayu, I brought you here because I wanted us to have a moment away from everything. Just us. Kayu smiled and leaned into Fawn. This is perfect, Fawn. Thank you. That night, under the stars, they shared stories, laughter, and kisses. Felt like the rest of the world didn't exist. Back in the village, Molly confronted Auntie Noi. Auntie, you've been spreading rumors about my sister and Fawn. Don't you think it's time to stop? Auntie Noi looked surprised. Molly, I'm just concerned. Concerned about what? Molly interrupted. Kayu and Fawn aren't hurting anyone. They're just in love. Isn't that what we all want? Auntie Noi sighed. You're right, Molly. Maybe I've been too harsh. Molly smiled. Good. Now let them be happy. One evening, back at Fawn's house, they had a quiet dinner. The room was dimly lit with candles. Fawn reached across the table and took Kayu's hand. Kayu, I want you to know that no matter what happens, I'll always choose you. Kayu's eyes filled with tears. You mean everything to me, Fawn. Fawn stood up and pulled Keu into a slow dance in the kitchen. They moved in perfect harmony, their hearts beating as one. As the night went on, their kisses became more passionate, and their love grew stronger. The world outside faded away, leaving only them. Slowly, the village began to change. Seeing Keu and Fawn's love, many realized their judgment had been unfair. At a village festival, Keu and Fawn danced together openly for the first time. The villagers watched, some smiling, some still hesitant, but no one interfered. Molly cheered loudly, pulling Pim into the excitement. Even Auntie Noi offered a small smile. Maybe love isn't so bad, she muttered to herself. On the riverbank where their love story began, Fawn knelt before Keu, holding a small box. Keu, you are my heart, my home, my everything. Will you spend the rest of your life with me? Keu gasped, tears streaming down her face. Yes, Fawn. 1,000 times yes. Fawn slipped the ring onto her finger, and they kissed, the world around them bursting into color. Their journey hadn't been easy, but their love had endured. And as they stood there, hand in hand, they knew they could face anything together.